Warning: the following video may have language that some viewers may find offensive, and others are already offended. Viewer discretion is advised, but not really. No animals were hurt in the making of this 4-hour feature film.
Hey everybody, recently we had a guest in here, Angela Geddes, and she was talking about alcohol, or fetal alcohol spectrum disorder.
Yeah.
Right? I got it right this time.
You did,
I didn't
yeah.
say syndrome. I was almost right there.
Yeah.
Anyway, Angela and I, we've been back and forth. This is actually attempt number 2 because we've just getting things set up, and we had one camera that just for some reason wanted to keep shutting off, so I had to move things around. And then as we're going, this camera that you're looking at right now is working fine. Her camera, actually I forgot to turn the record on. So this is what happens when you're a one-man show. It's a lot. You've got, 3 cameras, the lights, the studio, the mics, the editing, everything is all done just myself. So it is a lot of work. But Angela and I, on our first attempt, were talking a little bit about her education. And Angela, I'll just let you go through that just again on your schooling and your whole, too bad you don't have all the little symbols beside your name, but
yeah. Well, that's okay. Yeah, I always say I just took the long way around, right? So out of high school, I in Sudbury went to Cambrian College and went and got my child and youth worker diploma. And I'm really grateful for that foundational education. I think that everybody working in the front lines needs to, kind of see those experiences. And that was great. But then I soon realized that my focus on children and youth was lovely, but these kind of mental health conditions and some of the things that we're seeing, it's a family affair, right? The whole family is impacted. So I wanted to learn more about that link between family, school, and community. So I went back to school with that focus with a degree in psychology. And then after that, I realized that I would love to be able to provide individual services in private practice for the long term and be a little bit more creative, because I do have a particular interest in complicated and beautiful brains and uncovering some of those hidden neurological or neurodevelopmental symptoms that we're experiencing.
Now, you said that, the complicated, beautiful brain. So this is Angela's book that she wrote about this kind of stuff. Now, what just kind of popped into my head though was, as a kid growing up, what made you turn to this kind of, like, did you have a family friend, or was there somebody that you kept thinking, what's the matter?
Yeah.
Like, what drove you to that area?
It's so interesting. I don't, and I didn't even know about fetal alcohol spectrum disorder, even when I went to school as a child and youth worker. So when you go to school in human services, there's child and youth work, social service worker, or developmental service worker. And I didn't really anticipate working with people who had developmental disabilities. I thought it was more, family unit stuff, mental health, and environmental, and adverse childhood experiences. Like, that's what I was interested in. And I don't really know where I came up with the idea, except that I think I've always been a helper. And it may have been Elvis Presley's song, The Ghetto, when I was a really young child, reading that or listening to that.
We touched on that.
So I think that impacted me for sure. But I don't know. I've just always been kind of a helper.
Now, Angela was in, this is actually our second show.
Yeah.
She was in, actually, funny enough, as we're taping this now, it's your first episode is actually playing on Rogers.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So it's actually on TV. But so we did, if you go back and catch episode 1, I guess we'll say episode 1 for you. You'll be able to see how we dove into a little bit of this topic, but really we didn't touch much of it at all.
No.
What I was more blown away by everything was, we did talk about facial features, different things that can happen to somebody that is exposed to this kind of stuff. But I grew up in an area where everybody had parties. I remember so many people. I remember back in the 80s, even early 90s, women, pregnant, drinking, smoking. I mean, especially in the 80s, if 70s and 80s, if you didn't smoke, something wrong with you.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just what you did,
Everybody
right?
did, yeah.
So,
well, it's interesting that you say that, though, because yeah, I mean, I just came across a full-page advertisement from Seagram's that was dated back in the 70s, and it was so progressive of them to acknowledge. It was a pregnant woman on there, and it said, "Are you wondering about whether or not you should drink?" Had this little article, and it said, "Our advice is take a pause." Okay. And that came from Seagram's in the 1970s, but you never see anything like that now. Yeah. And that puzzles me, because prenatal alcohol exposure is the leading cause of developmental disabilities in the Western world, which means that it's the leading cause of those puzzling mental health issues that we're seeing. We're all aware of the crisis that we're experiencing with mental health and our lack of services. But a lot of the times we're talking about people who have developmental disabilities, but we're just not sure. And as we said last time, it doesn't take a lot of alcohol during a pregnancy. And even when I was in school, I thought that those early weeks of the pregnancy, if there was any interference, it would just naturally terminate and you wouldn't know, it was not devastating to the development. But we now know that men play a role in at the time of conception, obviously, and we also know that those early weeks really do matter. And 2 binge drinks throughout the pregnancy is enough to meet criteria to get an assessment. Yeah,
now that was what blew me away. The first one was just how little.
When I ask people what a binge drink is, they think like 10, 12 drinks. I'm like, no, 3 to 5, but that's standard drinks. And a standard drink is 5 ounces of wine. If I go up to Legends, they'll ask me if I want 6 ounces or 9 ounces, which 9 ounces is essentially 2 drinks. So if you have 2 good glasses of wine, right, a couple of times during your pregnancy and quickly, you can do significant damage. And the facial features only happen between day 18 and 21, so following conception. Okay. So many people are not aware the pregnancy is not confirmed by that point. You could be just inadvertently. So the statistics are startling, right? And when you think about our culture, which includes alcohol for 80% of Canadians, and then you also consider that over 50% of pregnancies are unplanned. So anytime I get a chance to talk about this, it's important because it makes people stop and think. And then, yes, we have my friends say similar things like, "Oh, it can't be all alcohol, Ange. Like, we'd all have it if that was the case, right?" And she says, "Our parents drank and we're all fine." And I'm like, well, 2 things. One of them is define fine. That there's a lot of people that struggle with impulsive decisions,
absolutely.
anger problems, mental health issues, learning difficulties. We all know the busy little boy that just wouldn't stop, the one that was always in trouble, So we know those, but we don't know if they weren't affected. Now, not everybody exposed to alcohol is going to end up with...
I was just going to ask you, okay, not everybody, this happened. I mean, there's probably some people that have gone out and drank their faces off, and yet the baby was okay, let's say. But what percentage, how much of a higher risk are you at if you continue to drink?
Well, I think there's lost potential for everyone. I mean, alcohol is a toxin, so there's lost potential, and it's a full body experience. So you talk about, I worked in pediatrics diabetes clinic in Brantford actually for a little while. High number of kids in there with prenatal alcohol exposure that also had childhood diabetes. So we're talking about over 400 comorbidities. So this is like a health concern, like now, a major public health concern.
Can a baby have, when a person goes into detox, even say for alcohol, so does a baby experience withdrawals?
Oh yeah, I mean, and obviously the more alcohol exposure, the more damage that's being done, right? So yes, I've worked with kids. The very first little person I ever worked with had to be weaned off of alcohol when he was born.
Really?
Yeah. Wow. So he obviously struggled way more significantly, but I use that when I do any of my training as an example of, and this is going to sound odd, but The bad news was he was exposed to a lot of alcohol and he was impacted, you know, and you could tell. But the good news was he was exposed to enough alcohol that he appeared to be different. So we innately knew to care and wrap around him in a good way.
Yeah.
But if he was full grown and, you know, didn't have the facial features and just kept making silly mistakes or getting himself into trouble, we'd be like, pull up your socks. What's wrong with you?
Yeah.
And then that turns kids into, you know, their view of self.
Some of the 70s terminology just came to my head, which I wouldn't even repeat today. But I mean, I remember those times, those talks, those name calls, those, you know, what's the matter with you? And, even teachers acting like that. I can remember doing some pretty dumb things in school. And I remember my teacher coming up to me and said, "What, are you stupid? Like, what are you doing?" I remember that.
Yeah.
Ear pulls, hair pulling. Oh, yeah.
Well, we've come a long way, but yet, you know, going back to prevention messaging, you know, drinking during pregnancy is actually on the rise, even though we know we shouldn't be drinking technically during the pregnancy. But there's still a number of people we get mixed messages from physicians, from psychologists, from doctors, from lay people, from grandmas, from, you know, people who are, "Oh, I drank, you're fine," you know, just like. But anyways, I mean, you know, research is only as good as it is today, and we keep learning, and we are learning. And actually, the statistics are different from when I was here to see you last. So. In Canada, we're still around 4% of the population is what we're saying, which we know is a low estimate. And we know it's a low estimate. I just want to clarify this. And it's because we do community-based research and scanning. So you'd say you do like the grade 1s in St. Thomas, for example, and you would test everybody there. But you have to agree to testing. So if parents are a bit concerned, and if they don't want their child to participate, they can opt out. And there is a terrible stigma attached to prenatal health and alcohol consumption during pregnancy. So if you did drink during pregnancy, and if there was testing going on in your community, you may say, no thanks, I don't want to be involved with that, right? So we know it's low estimate because we know people don't necessarily want to share that, which is fair. But at a low estimate, we're 4%, which is 1 in 25, which is one in every classroom. And now we know that in North America, it's 8%, Tony.
Oh, wow. So you're like 1 in 12 or 1 in 11?
We're talking about, almost 10%.
Yeah. Wow. Now, what got me, though, when you're saying that, I just remember from our first talk. So when you talked about your book, and you had that elderly gentleman came to you that read your book and went, "This is me." Like he was 70s or 80s, if I remember correctly. He couldn't figure out his whole life. This is what made him realize some of the issues he was dealing with. Yet he was very successful. He was. Business-wise, great.
And there are people who are, like I know of people who have their master's degree in restorative art and musicians and you know, teachers and engineers. And they have extra supports or, you know, foundational scaffolding, so to speak, that helps them with some of their areas of deficit, you know. It is a scattered profile because alcohol injures when it's in the system and it develops fine while you're not in the system, right? So there's pockets of what I refer to as pockets of brilliance and then these areas of challenge. So you might do, you know, really well in reading and songwriting, but your recall might not be 100%, right? So there's this kind of scattered and discrepancies within brain domains that are.
Okay, so I'm going to play not the devil's advocate, but I'm going to come to you right now. I'm going to say, well, look, I'm 60 years old. I think I've done not too bad with my life. This is what. Why should I give a crap now? Like what? By me working with you,
right?
What could we improve? Or what would it change for me? Like, this is kind of what I want to know.
Well, I mean, some of the symptoms that people with who've been exposed to alcohol, you know, they sometimes are pretty impulsive. Sometimes their memory isn't 100%. Like it might be inconsistent. Sometimes it might mean that you think something happened it really didn't happen the way that it did, so you might be a little bit unsettled. Somebody might say, that's not the way I remember it happening, and you're like, yeah, that's how it happened, right? So those kinds of things can happen. There's also very rigid thought process. So you get something in your head, and sometimes you can be a little wee bit myopic, like where seeing the big picture might be hard, or people sometimes assume that you don't have empathy, but actually you do have a lot of empathy. Just perspective taking is sometimes difficult.
Yeah, so they're not seeing it.
Right.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's that, but I think it provides people with a little bit of clarity, because I think anybody that I know who would qualify does struggle with overthinking, anxiety, and affect, like maybe losing kind of control at times and then coming back down, or just having trouble with substance use or crutches or overeating.
Now, how would you distinguish the difference? So from, we all have some sort of times in our lives where something happens, or we're anxiety or whatever.
There's a ton of overlapping.
I still don't think there's not one person on this planet that's the perfect person, right? We're not.
No.
And when I say, normality or whatever, and I look, and I've said on the camera, many, like, what's that? What is normality, right? That's that. But
it's a construct.
How would you distinguish then, say, from everyday living? Is it because it's a repeat pattern? If somebody can sit down and think, okay, memory, maybe one thing, but I don't know, say some other kind of condition that's happening, a panic attack. Say something sets them up, but if they sit back and they think of all the times that they see a pattern setting up, is this how you would diagnose somebody?
Well, a diagnosis is very complex, and there are lots of overlapping characteristics. So you have to have significant struggles, which means like below the first or second percentile, when you do psychological evaluations. So I do not diagnose. I do functional assessments, right, to see how people function. But this has to be developmental in nature too. So you go back to when the baby was born. Was the baby a little bit colicky? Was the baby a little wee bit delayed? Was their potty training a little bit tougher? Were they a fussy baby? Did they have a gag reflex? Did they, all of these
Sorry,
things.
I don't mean to laugh, but when you were saying that, I'm seeing all the stories of me.
Right.
My
well, I don't mean to startle you or worry you.
It's. I remember my mom always saying how colicky.
Right.
And because I used to cry like all the time, my dad never got sleep because he would work all day, come home. We had a farm and pigs. He'd go do the pigs, and then he'd spend hours at night driving around in the car with me. It was the only way I would shut up.
See, but I mean, and I'm not here to say that this has been your experience, but those types of things, and then you add it up to, well, there's social difficulties in school and no fear, running away. And, I was talking to somebody who said that she dug herself out of the backyard fence, when she was only 3 years old. And it's like kids usually do have fear. But we chalk up a lot of things as normal when we're a first-time parent or there are kids. We think, so, but there are protective factors, Tony, that, the stability of your family, there's neuroplasticity, you had rules, you had, people holding you in and helping you and putting up with some of your stuff and not giving up on you so you didn't have trauma, or as, I shouldn't assume anything, but I'm just, you had some of those things that make it so that, he was a trick to raise.
I mean, there's kids that grew up like myself that, maybe there was a lot of this in me then. It may not even be that. It might have been, I was just,
there's ADHD.
I was a little rebel rouser. When
that's right.
There are people born that way that I just think are, they're rough.
But once you get to high school, sometimes the wheels fall off, like it's, and the gap tends to widen, like developmentally, when the expectations become a little bit harder, right?
But you're nailing it right on me.
So,
this is spooky.
Well,
Public school for me, not good. When I got to high school, loved it. But I quit at age 16 because my dad got really sick at that time, and I had to go to work to help mom. And I never got to finish my high school and all my friends back then. But I see exactly what you're saying. I see that is my mirror right there.
Yeah.
But I'm not saying it.
No.
I'm sure I don't know what kind of parties my parents had back when I was.
Well, that's the thing,
but,
but I mean, all we can do is the best that we can. And I think for us, it's for my messaging is that there's no safe time, no safe type, no safe amount of alcohol to consume during pregnancy. But at the same time, I don't want to scare the life out of people if, but reduce and stop.
But you know what? The thing you can't fight, strengthen a problem if you don't know what the problem is.
Exactly.
So once you get the answer or a diagnosis saying, okay, it is this, now you have something to learn and
even
grow
dealing with anxiety is different. Like I'm a therapist for everybody, not just people with FASD.
Yeah, we talked about that too, because we also talk about first responders and all that other stuff.
Right.
But you so elaborate a little more. So not just PTSD.
No.
I support what else can you help people?
Pain. I support people with depression and other mood disorders.
Okay, chronic pain, and that's a big one. That can really be life debilitating.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And we do a lot of parenting and family stuff, and I don't really do couples therapy, but I do sometimes support that in terms of the parenting journey, and how to support that. But we really offer a whole family kind of approach. So we have more than one therapist, so the kids will come in and I might see the parents at the same time. And so we try to really, offer and think about, I bring in a dietitian, I'll bring in an osteopath, I'll suggest other things because mental health is not just mental, it's physical, it's what you eat, it's everything, right? So it's
got to be very frustrating for you, especially if you're working with a child and you see it, you know what's going on, you think you're helping, and the parents just are like roadblocking you at every step. You're trying to work with them, trying to get them to open up, trying to get, and I'm sure you've dealt with that where they're just like, this is impossible. Like I don't want to deal with this. My kid's not like this. My kid's doing this. And I don't know. I
don't know. I feel like, I feel pretty honored to meet people where they're at to sort of inspire. I think parents feel a little beat up sometimes, and I think they feel judged and feel feel like themselves, like, what am I doing wrong? And that's why I wrote the book, to talk about what the effects of prenatal alcohol exposure is across the lifespan, so that, and this is why I wrote my second book, which
we're going to get into that one here in a sec. So,
this is not your typical parenting approach. So it provides people an opportunity to challenge the norms around the way they parent, so that they can, like, a different way to get to the same place, because we all want the same things.
Now this
for our
book
kids.
here, so that's A Complicated Beautiful Brain. Where can we get this?
That's on Amazon.
Strictly Amazon? Okay.
Well, I have copies
unless you know them.
Yeah, if you want to come visit, you can come and get one from me. But
so now this one,
that's Amazon as well.
We got book 1, and this is book 2 now. I'll put pictures up on the screen of the books,
thanks.
okay?
Yeah.
This is strictly Amazon too?
Yeah.
Okay.
At this point, So it just goes through the kind of.
Oh, you got color pictures too.
Yeah.
There's colors.
It goes through the areas of, executive functioning and mood disorders or mood.
You know what's cute is, well, not cute. let me rephrase that.
That's okay.
What is cool is I see every so many pages you got notes.
Yes.
That you can write down as you're going through it, probably things that pop into your head.
Well, to your point, parenting is tough. And if you know your child more than I know your child, so you would know what works and what doesn't work, what you've tried, what you haven't tried, and how to kind of build upon what you know and the things that I'm bringing to the table that might add to it. So,
wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's my goal for that.
So that's okay. Wow. So, man, you're busy.
I am busy.
Yeah.
I am
but
busy.
I don't know. I don't want to say I see a lot of you and me or me and you, whatever, but I think we're very familiar
Similar?
Yeah, thank you. See, we all have issues.
Yeah.
With difficulties, like people ask me, okay, say in my life now when I run this building.
Yeah.
Customer service. So if when I was at Home Hardware and I worked my way up to supervisor and lumberyard, but people used to ask me, what do you find best part of your job, and how do you challenge yourself, things like that, right? For me, it's always been, I get more satisfaction out of when I run into somebody that is very difficult. extremely grumpy, a bad customer, maybe a bad experience, a tenant here that's having really hard times, can't pay rent, is like on the verge of being evicted, having to deal with landlord-tenant board, but working with them, and then in the end have them smile and say thanks.
Yeah.
That's what gives me the most enjoyment.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
So, it's always, it sets me right up, because I dive right in. So I go, when I commit to something or somebody, I go 200%. Like I'm in there, and if they go down, I go down. Basically, that's how much I get invested in things. And I always keep trying to tell myself, like, stop doing that.
Well, there's a balance there,
but
right?
Yeah, see, and I still go on the heavy side.
Yeah.
There was a point in my life that I wouldn't have cared. If this whole complete building caught on fire, I'd be like, hey, bye, and I'd be gone. Yeah. I honestly, now I would definitely be the last one to go. Yeah. If I could even get out. If I couldn't, so be it. That's the way I feel today. So what happened in my life to change that completely flip? I don't know. That's just who I am. I've been that way with the Legion, the veterans, the everything I've done has been, volunteering for 30 plus years, almost 40 years, I guess now. Yeah. I just would always rather do something for other people. Always do. I don't want to do hardly anything for myself. Never. And,
that's a lot for our veterans too. Our people in service tend to do that. And, like I said, there is a bit of a balance, but I don't think people volunteer or give to others for nothing. Just as you said, it makes us feel good too, right?
The only reason I do is to help the other ones. Like even when it comes to Christmas, I love giving gifts. Even to adults, I think more of the kids.
Yeah.
Christmas is kids, right? Yeah. But there are a lot of, the meaning of it. But I hate getting gifts. I always feel weird when I get a gift, because I'm like, no.
Maybe we need to talk.
Yeah, maybe. But I love giving it and watching other people's expressions, right?
So do I
like to make them happy. But you seem a lot like that too. Like if you came across a client that was going to be difficult, but you can help them. You're gonna dive right in there and try
for sure. I mean,
to get to that goal where they're gonna come back at the end and say, "My God, you helped us so much."
Yeah, I don't give up easily. That's for sure. Yeah. But as Jamie would say, you have to be careful. Sometimes you only have so much room in your suitcase.
Yeah, it is.
That's what he says. And when you put so much in, you got to take something out. So that's I rely on him and my supports to support me to do the things that I'm able to do.
And of course you do need the support too, right?
Yeah, of
so
course.
No matter what, everybody, no matter what's going on, there are times that I'll talk to it's either coworker or somebody, and I'll just say, "Man, I just went through this," or "Holy."
I think everybody needs a helper.
Yeah. Well, you have
from time to time. None of us should go through this alone. So
this trip is too short as it is. I've been learning that a lot. And I said currently, we're probably losing my mother now, right? With what's happening. But 96, dementia. It's just more sad of the way she's going. She's in hospital, a lot of pain, and organs are starting to shut down, things like that. So. Today may be the day I got to venture north now, back to Brick Falls. And, I'm hoping travel should be okay. But there's a lot of things that go on in a person's life that, you need help.
It's never a straight line.
There. Yeah.
It's never a straight line, and it's okay. Yeah. As long as you're moving forward.
So this is a lot with the people this way, and the families, is getting the strength. So how... I think we did touch a little bit about this. So when a family goes, it's their family doctor, then how did they get to your...
Well, I mean, you don't need a referral to come through me. I hope that people have, employment benefits, but sometimes we get contracts from service groups or we look for funding or contracts through Children's Aid or probation, and they will pay for it because we are fee for service, unfortunately.
Okay. So it's not an OHIP coverage.
No, it's private practice. So. So we're accessible just by going to the website.
Is the initial consultation, like say if I call you up and say, hey, this is going on, can we talk?
Yeah.
Is it charged right from that moment on?
No, we have a free consultation for sure, and it just on my website you click a button, you put your name, and then we'll arrange for that consult to happen either through Zoom or a phone call, and that's free. So that's automatic, and then we set something up from there. And then we do, try to make it easy for direct billing and that kind of stuff if that's possible. But
Okay.
I
So if it's employment benefits, you can direct bill
Yep.
if they have that coverage.
Yep.
Family is struggling, really not a lot of money there, which a lot of people are in
I
today's
know,
world. So
and we do some free stuff too. But
you try to you do have some avenues you can turn to see if it's not a guarantee, but
we
it's
work with
something
people for sure, and we do a sliding scale. We don't want money to be a barrier to good health.
Do you have wait times?
I was just talking to Jamie right now. I might for the first time have to say that I personally cannot take anybody else right this minute, but I do have other team members now, so we'll just see about that. I'm gonna.
Now your office is here in St. Thomas.
Yeah, I have an office in St. Thomas, and then we have clinicians who work virtually. But I have a beautiful space right on St. Catherine Street, and it's we're able to do concurrent sessions, and we're able to do groups and little retreats. It's a yoga studio too. I'm also a yoga teacher. I forgot to mention.
Oh, that's right too. Yes, that's right. Yeah, Jamie said something about I should go to it, and then I can get folded into ways I never thought. But this is not limber.
Yoga is your own practice.
Yeah,
but
it is.
Anyways,
So and I do remember, group sessions. So Jamie just came out with a song that we played on the last episode.
Right, yeah.
Dusty Road to Home?
Yes, that's
Or is it Dusty Road? Yeah, Dusty Road to Home. Yes. Yeah. And that was written by the people in your group.
A number of people with complicated and beautiful brains.
Yeah. So it was so amazing how this came about. So I'll just recap a little bit. So all of your participants just wrote down a memory, a feeling, had to be a whole story, just something that
a message, a thought that they wanted to share, and
and then Jamie took all of those little cue cards, and then put the song together of all of their.
Within 15 minutes, he had a verse and a chorus. He had a verse and a chorus, and then he took it home and got it professionally done. But what I did too is I shuffled them all up and read it out, and the group created a theme, helped him with a theme from the messages that we were all sharing.
The title alone was just
it was beautiful.
It's
really beautiful, and the kids all got a co-write, but we were conscious of confidentiality, so just initials,
Okay. Yeah.
So when we make millions, I will have to make sure that they get it.
So they're going to have to put their trust in you for that.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. I'm still waiting for the day when CCMA Awards and everything come out. I told you I want to see you on the stage.
That would be nice.
That would be so cool to see him back up there again. But that song was just to have your group do that, to make a song out of that, which was an amazing song that when I even first heard it, it just immediately took me back to my youth growing up and the farm and everything.
You wouldn't know it was written by a bunch of young people, for sure. And they're very creative. And actually, we had Katie and Josh, his kids, who are both incredibly talented. Katie Topham, Joshua St. James. But they came and did a vocal lesson with our group too. And then they ended with a karaoke night, and the kids the youth really loved it. The youth and young adults.
Oh, cool.
So that was good.
Awesome. So so they can get it. I'll put the links up. So for your office, your website, get the books. Book one, Complicated Beautiful Brain, and then the Parenting Guide. Why is this one thinner?
Well, because I had more to say on the first one, and that one I thought was just really, really important. And that book is not just for people with FASD. Like I said, this is for complex neurodevelopmental disorders, which includes ADHD, which includes learning disabilities, and autism spectrum disorder. I'm really trying to make sure that we're inclusive of people who are not neurodivergent, because we have a lot of people who would qualify for an FASD diagnosis, but globally less than 2% know they have it. So in Ontario, it's 0.5% who have had access to a proper assessment. So basically, most people don't know they have.
Okay, so I just want to ask one question then. My wife and I just had a baby. FASD's there. Absolutely. She drank a lot, whatever. You even see it in the facial recognition. So by coming to you and then, we get the diagnosis, we know what we're dealing with, whatever. How does it help?
It helps a lot, because it helps to make sure that we build on the strengths and really support the areas of vulnerability. So if there are sensory processing difficulties, like that's a big one, right? Lots of times you see teenagers with their hoods up, and we think they're just being kind of, cool or kind of have a bit of an attitude or whatever. But actually, lots of times it's to kind of keep them focused on here and protect themselves.
It's a horse with the blinders.
It's a sense, and it's also a sensitivity thing. But then there's other kids that won't wear it because it makes them scared that they can't hear what's behind them. And so it's very diverse, right? But there's a lot of different, sensory motor skills and subtle things that show up, and people don't really understand why this is going on. So we can help to develop some clarity and mitigate the risk. And the sooner you know that you've got a brain-based condition, the better off you can be to accept some of the extra supports that you need. So that you're not 18 all of a sudden and wondering, okay, well, why now that I want to go to college, why can't I do this successfully? Because you've had your mom or your dad get a second diploma.
Yeah, we talked about that in the first one, about somebody that does something over and over and over again, and then all of a sudden can't remember.
Right, yeah.
And it's like now you're mad at yourself going, you know what, I've done this 1,000 times.
Right.
Why can't I do this now?
Yeah.
That's
so
part
it's that inconsistent performance, but being aware of it and accepting it.
Okay.
So I know of somebody now that, she knows her memory's not that great, so she checks with people. Like she says, Mom, how did that go? This is how I remember it. And she gets a lot of peace out of that, because sometimes your memory can take you places that you don't want to go.
Oh, yeah.
And if I think you hit me and you didn't hit me, I would be scared of you.
Yeah.
Whether you did it or not. And so I deserve the opportunity to feel safe in your presence if you're somebody important to me, whether you're a teacher.
I don't know why, but just when you said that now, it reminded me of a video I just saw. It was about veterans in the States, and it was called the Mirror Box. And it's a new therapy that they're coming out. So they had a veteran that had lost his left arm, about halfway up his forearm, from an IED, went off and got. Yeah. So anyway, over the years, he was managing everything, and now all of a sudden started getting severe pains in his ghost pain, but to the point of where his hand was like, you squeeze your hand and just keep squeezing until it completely cramps and then seizes. And that was the pain he was. Like, he was literally breaking down, screaming in agony. And they couldn't figure out any way of treating. He tried everything from cannabis and relaxants and you name it. Yeah. And anyway, the surgeon, who was a veteran, came back and had just seen some very new therapy. And it was a mirror box. And all it was this square box, and it was all mirror on the outside with a hole in this side. So the idea was the box sat right here, and you put your amputated hand in. And on this one, you sit there and you look at the side, and this hand you bring in.
Yeah.
And now you have two hands.
Wow.
And the brain instantly knew that that hand was what was in the mirror. The guy was able to open his hand and relax it. And within weeks, it was completely gone. And he showed up back to the surgeon, full military uniform. The guy was like contemplating suicide and everything. And it was just how powerful the brain.
That's right.
Yeah.
And neuroplasticity and neuroception. So that's another thing too. Like, lots of times people don't feel when they're hungry or feel when they're overfull, so they undereat and overeat. They don't necessarily feel that they have to go to the bathroom until it's like, oh my gosh, I have to go, that kind of thing. So neuroception is real, but also that means that you can be triggered from memories, like we all do. That's PTSD. That's memory keeping us alive. But if it's not accurate, then we're still experiencing some of those traumas. Mm-hmm.
So what's your advice, and let's just close it off right now. Yeah. So you're going to talk to the general public. Mm-hmm. Okay, what's the message you want to get out about the importance of this? I think this, checked.
I think with the right supports and the right information, this is a condition that can be prevented. Okay. And I just think that nobody wants to do harm to their growing babies.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
And nobody wants to mess with potential.
Yeah.
So I can't guarantee, what may or may not happen but I do know that there's no safe amount. And I think those conversations need to go home.
Any questions? Any doubt? Call.
Yeah, and you know, there's, like I said, nobody does this on purpose. This is an indiscriminate condition. People consume alcohol. You know, my last baby was not planned. I don't ever lose sight of the fact that I was not a big drinker back then, and thank goodness I wasn't.
Yeah.
You know, because it could have happened very easily to me.
Wow.
Yeah.
So on a newborn, is there actual age? I don't know how you'd really ask this.
Yeah.
Is there a minimal age where you can start to see something? I mean, in a newborn is very basic.
Right.
I mean,
yeah, no, you might notice, like I always encourage people to do the developmental screens with their doctors, and you know, make sure that you're checking in on, you know, 2 months, 4 months, 6 months, and what babies are supposed to be doing. But as I said, you probably won't notice too much until you see that really busy kid that's very fiercely opinionated or resistant to
hit the old terrible twos.
You know that, but it's, you know, some extreme behaviors, difficult sleeping, difficult eating, you know, just when your typical parenting strategies aren't enough.
Okay.
You know, then you ask, parenting shouldn't be that hard, I guess. Yeah. And I feel like if it is, go check with your doctor.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, thanks for having me.
I think we covered a little bit more in there, but yeah, that's a lot.
There's lots to talk about, but yeah, it was good.
You went to school all those years to help all these family, and now you show up right here.
Yeah.
What a highlight.
Yeah, no, it's good. I'm excited.
I'm happy that we could do this, and yeah, so I'll get your information out. We'll see if we can get the books going again. You ever thought about doing a book thing here in town?
I have, actually. I've thought, where was I? I presented at Fanshawe, and there was a fella there, a student that was really, really great. Like, he came to me afterwards and said, I can't believe how much I learned. Have you ever thought about doing a speak at the library?
Yeah.
But I haven't, maybe. And I was in the paper at the Chronicle, I think in the St. Thomas paper too. Okay. Larry Schneider did an article on me, and he's asking for me to do some presentations as well. So, but I do teach. Absolutely. Like, I'm going to Seattle. I've been to Vancouver. I've been to Newfoundland. I've done Toronto. I have been to the Children's Mental Health. I do a lot of speaks, and my book is a required read in some college programs, which is amazing.
Oh, awesome.
And the feedback there has been phenomenal. I do full day trainings for communities and agencies, and
Wow.
All
right.
Busy.
Awesome. Well, Angela, thank you.
Thanks for having me again.
So, again, second time and technical difficulties.
Oh, I forgot to mention too. I also train. I also offer a training, and the next one is starting for social workers, but also for other frontline and allied health professionals who engage in some sort of assessment and support services for kids. So we're doing online training. It's a 6 week, an hour and a half each session.
So you could so you could have either EMS, a paramedic, a police officer.
Yeah.
That this is just extra training they could take, so when they're in the front lines, they have a little bit extra to...
Yeah, I think it would be more for social workers or people who are offering direct services for little people. Police officers would benefit from it, but it's more about, what everybody would benefit from it, really. But I'm trying to stay in my lane a little bit, because there's lots of trainings out there, but this one is really going to be helpful because we don't have enough assessment clinics, and people are not getting properly
So when you're
assessed.
saying social worker, would this be like PSW also, something that a personal support worker that would benefit by something like this?
Yeah, they could. This one helps, like, within my scope of practice, I can do a thorough assessment and, correspond with the physicians and psychologists and build those multidisciplinary assessments over time, which is what we need to do because we just don't have enough money or service providers to meet the need, right? So I can help to bridge that gap, and I want to build capacity for more social workers. And, speech and language, occupational therapy, child and youth workers, social services.
Now, these type of training sessions, they'll be on your website?
Yeah.
Okay, so there you go.
Yeah.
Just go right to your website and message you, talk to you,
Yeah, there's a click on there to
stuff.
register for sure, but I'm always available for questions if there's anything more.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right, appreciate it.
All right,
Thanks.
thank you.
All right, everybody, Angela Geddes, and from a complicated and beautiful brain, right there, to not your typical parenting guide, book number 2. So congrats on the second book.
Thank you very much.
Get yours. I'll put the links up, and we will see if we could maybe help some people.
Oh, I think that's great.
Take care, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
There we go. We did
That's
it.
awesome.